see you all now. Hopefully you can see me too. Prynhawn da, ffrindiau, croeso I Cas Newydd. Good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to Newport. Firstly, thank you for your introduction, Andy, and for introducing me to NAHT. Who knew back then that this is where it would lead? I'd also like to thank Simon Kidwell, our current president, who's doing a superb job during a very tough year. Simon, thank you for your hard work, your dedication and your leadership through these uncertain times. You've been instrumental in ensuring that NAHT continues to grow in strength with its reputation better than ever, and I look forward to continuing to work with you in your role as immediate past president, driving these important agenda items forward. Conference, I am so proud to be standing in front of you today as your next president and as the first school business leader to be elected national president in the union's history. People are very familiar with the concept of teaching as a vocation. I believe that school business leadership is also a vocation. The knowledge and skills that school business leaders have could be put to very good use in any sector or industry, but we choose to work in education because we want to make a positive difference to the lives of children and young people. I don't work in a school because I love spreadsheets. I work in a school because I love seeing children thrive, how our schools value each and every one of them without fear or favour, and offer them a place to grow, ask questions and have fun, while seeking to instil a love of learning that will stay with them for their entire lives. It grieves me as a school leader that the ambition of the government through its funding of schools does not match our ambition for our learners. Our children are the future of a post-Brexit, post-COVID Britain and will drive the prosperity of our country in the medium and long term. Not investing in them now lets them down, lets the country down and betrays their futures. Let's face it, being a child in 2024 Britain is a tough gig. You've lived some of your formative years through a pandemic, an unsettling, frightening and life-changing period for adults, never mind children. You're now going through a cost of living crisis. For many, this means weekly trips to the local food bank and trying to sleep in a cold house because it's too expensive to put the heating on. Any wonder then that children struggle to learn and that we have the highest levels of mental ill health that we've ever known. Yet again, we've been let down by a government who, instead of meeting those needs, wants to make it more difficult to claim the help that our children and young people deserve. Schools up and down the country are now feeding children, washing their clothes and meeting the shortfall in funding for agencies that previously supported families, such as health and social care. While schools are now frequently the front door for essential services, we should be funding these other agencies adequately to allow you, as skilled professionals, to devote your time to the core business of teaching and learning. An example of this is the outstanding impact that Sure Start Centres had. There is now considerable research evidence to show that Sure Start Centres had a profound impact on outcomes for children, but the funding for these was withdrawn, leaving schools to try to meet this level of need unfunded. It is to the credit of school leaders and their teams that despite the withdrawal of funding from all of these other services, schools have continued to make progress and change children's lives for the better. Because education truly does change lives. I witnessed that firsthand growing up with my brother in a one-parent family in our council house in West Yorkshire. My mum was determined that despite the situation she found herself in, she wanted to fulfil her potential, to achieve for herself and provide for her family. She put herself through college in between working numerous jobs and provided my brother Stuart and I not only with basic sustenance, but also a valuable role model for life. After she achieved the qualifications she'd missed out on at school, she went on to gain a degree and then a PGCE before becoming a college lecturer, all whilst fulfilling the role of two parents and head of a household. This was an important lesson for Stuart and me in the transformative power of education and hard work. Without the support and example of my mum, I surely wouldn't be standing here now. And I want to take this opportunity to thank her for everything that she's done for me and my brother on our life's journey so far. I'm delighted that both my mum and my brother Stuart are here to share this day with me. I first became involved with schools as the administrator at my son's primary school, combining this role with working 2 afternoons a week as a teaching assistant, supporting teaching and learning. Doing both these roles simultaneously taught me how every role in school contributes towards supporting children in reaching their potential. This was when I got the bug for working in education. The passion and enthusiasm I witnessed for developing the whole child was utterly infectious, and I knew that I'd found the right career for me. Future roles in 2 large primary schools in Blackpool followed and gave me a clear insight into the day-to-day challenges faced by schools, their staff, the learners and their families. It was within these roles that I developed my senior leadership skills and knowledge, and where I first became involved with our great union in its Blackpool branch, the North West region and national executive. My sense of indignation at how schools have been grossly underfunded and undersupported by national government over a number of years led me to feeling the need to take action. And colleagues, you know as well as I do, the best way to do this is within the biggest and most influential school leadership union in Western Europe. At NAHT, we don't stand by wringing our hands, but we get stuck into the issues that matter most for our members. And I guarantee that as your national president, I and the National Executive will hold this and any future government to account for the decisions they make which affect our members and their schools. Schools have been desperately underfunded for so long, it's impossible to remember what adequate funding looks like. Everyone in the profession has seen their pay cut in real terms year after year. Our workloads continue to increase. We struggle to recruit people, and when we do recruit, we struggle to keep them. We're held to account by a regime which was intended to improve schools, but in reality worsens them by placing their staff under too much pressure to carry out their jobs effectively. This in turn exacerbates the recruitment and retention crisis. The Prime Minister talks about education being the silver bullet by which we can solve all the problems that our country faces, but these words mean nothing unless they're backed up by funding and support for the people charged with that work. There will be some who say taking action is futile, but just look at what we achieved as a union over the last year. The increases to pay and funding, which only came about because of the way we mobilised and showed we weren't afraid to engage in industrial action if necessary. The progress we've made across the nations on reviewing workload, and the dialogue we're having about a different way of holding schools to account. Together, we make a difference. We've forced change before, and we will do it again. Conference, together, united, firm in our beliefs and resolve, we will make a difference. I've talked a little bit about my own background, and I'm sure we've all heard the sobering statistics about how significantly your postcode can affect your earnings, career prospects, and even life expectancy. Just last month, a report was published detailing how a young person from an affluent area is 6 times more likely to get into a top university than a young person from a disadvantaged area. That is not acceptable. Current levels of poverty are around 50% higher than they were in the 1970s. And despite the fact that we live in one of the richest countries in the world, 30% of our children are now living in poverty. That is not acceptable. And Conference, a shocking 47% of children from black and minority ethnic groups are in poverty. That is just not acceptable. Every child should have the opportunity to thrive, prosper, and achieve their potential, because every child is precious. It is for this reason that I have decided that the President's charity for 2024-25 will be Buttle UK, who work to eliminate the impact of poverty and disadvantage to children. They are also a key player in the End Child Poverty Coalition. There will be an opportunity to hear from Buttle UK tomorrow evening at our gala dinner. I greatly applaud the work that charities like Buttle UK do, but the government needs to do so much more to eliminate child poverty. The levelling up agenda is so very clearly not working. A new strategy is urgently needed. The theme of this year's conference is For Their Future, and you will have seen that those three words precede all of our campaign priorities. These are important issues for us and our members, but the phrase "for their future" emphasises the need for these to be addressed immediately if the children and young people in our schools are to have the future they deserve. Firstly, inspection and accountability. Ofsted's inspection model is no longer fit for purpose. It is unreliable and undeliverable. It's causing serious physical and mental damage to the health of school staff, in many cases driving them out of the profession, in other cases leading to the most tragic consequences. Ofsted is currently carrying out the Big Listen, which we welcome. However, it is deeply disappointing, to say the least, that the government has already decided that the system of using reductive, oversimplistic, single-word judgments is to be continued. We're asking for a root and branch review of the inspection system. Yes, this will take time, but just tinkering around the edges of what is currently in place will not make the difference that is desperately needed. There needs to be genuine dialogue with education professionals and their trade unions. Not just listening, but really hearing what is being said and working together to build a new system that is effective, reliable, and genuinely useful to both schools and parents. Secondly, pay and funding. Since 2010, the pay of teachers and school leaders has been eroded year on year in real terms. No wonder then that so many graduates are looking elsewhere for their career path. This year we need a double-digit pay rise in order to restore pay to 2010 levels, and restore is the correct word. This is about bringing pay back to the level it used to be at 14 years ago. On top of this, we're asking for a full reassessment of the national pay structure, including a comprehensive review of the factors that determine leadership pay. And much more work needs to be done to support the closing of pay gaps relating to protected characteristics. For school business leaders, NAHT has reiterated yet again its call for the development of a pay structure that is aligned with the pay of other school leaders. Whilst the DFE openly recognises the value of the contribution that school business leaders make to school improvement, our calls for this pay structure have been continually disregarded. This needs to change. The pay restoration we're calling for must be fully funded. We need sustained investment in our schools through our core funding, with real terms increases each year. When I started working in education, we were given 3-year budgets. We haven't had these for a long time. To be effective school leaders, we need to plan strategically, and this means having surety over what resources our schools will have into the future. And as I've already outlined, the support services that surround schools and help families also need investment. Schools cannot continue to try and meet children's needs in isolation. Thirdly, recruitment and retention. The damage done to the reputation of the profession by excessive workload and a national narrative fed by comments about teachers and school leaders by those in government has seen the government consistently fail to meet their own recruitment targets for teachers. Last year, they missed their overall recruitment target by 38%. Staggeringly, they recruited only half of the secondary teachers needed. Almost a third of school leaders aged under 50 leave their post within 5 years. Head teachers are now 4 times more likely to quit their role for careers outside of state schools than they were in 2010. These efforts to recruit and retain show a woeful lack of ambition and are a direct result of pay that has reduced in value year on year, excessive workload, and high-stakes accountability and inspection. Unless these issues are addressed, the government will continue to fail to meet its own targets. As you would expect, though, Conference, NAHT has the answers that will allow the government to meet their own targets, and we make no secret of what the government needs to do. As well as addressing the issues around inspection and pay, they need to restore trust by empowering school leaders to make the decisions that best meet their learners' needs. Commit to full and meaningful engagement, consultation and collaboration with the profession's representative bodies when developing policy. Remove the drivers of the mental health and wellbeing crisis and provide accessible, fully funded support, including supervision. Moving on, we have school buildings and estates. It is a basic requirement for education that we have school buildings that are safe and fit for purpose. What we actually have are schools with crumbling concrete, holes in the roof that need buckets to catch the rainwater, and pupils working in damp and completely inadequate conditions for learning. Since 2010, the real terms funding for major school rebuilding and refurbishment projects has halved. In 2021, the DfE estimated that £11.4 billion is needed to bring the school estate up to satisfactory. In our recent survey to members, 83% of school leaders said that they lack the funding needed to maintain their school buildings. The government has set out its vision for the UK to be the world-leading education sector in sustainability and climate change by 2030. But to realise that vision, much more financial investment is needed in school estates. It is imperative that we see real terms increases in capital funding year on year to bring the school estate back up to at least a minimum acceptable level. We also need the government to ensure that RAC, asbestos and other dangerous materials are removed from our schools. Next, we come to special educational needs and disabilities. Colleagues, I don't need to tell you that the funding system for children with SEND is broken. You see that every day. And as school budgets are cut further by central government, you are left with truly heartbreaking decisions about who you can support. School leaders have the highest of ambitions for all children, especially those with SEND. And it is an indictment on those in government that they don't share those high ambitions and expectations. Again, tinkering around the edges of this simply will not work. We need a full review of high needs funding to ensure that it is sufficient in the long term and consistent across the country. Specialist external support services need investment so that the full range of support that learners need can be provided by the right people instead of leaving schools to try and manage this alone. Last, but definitely not least, workload and well-being. Over many years, our members have sought to address every societal and educational issue which has been thrown their way. Being the solution-focused professionals that we are, we make everything work, but there are literally no more hours in the day to address the workload we are now being asked to undertake. Underfunding of other external services has just exacerbated this, as without social care, mental health support and the like, our children and young people simply cannot learn. We can't keep trying to plug these gaps as our own workload is now beyond what is achievable. This unachievable workload has seen many of our colleagues become ill, and many are now choosing to leave the profession. Research has shown that almost all school leaders struggle to sleep at night because of the stress and worry caused by their jobs. Why should we, as professionals, be put in a position where we are being asked to prioritise our jobs over spending time with our families and over our own physical and mental health? No employee should be asked to do this. We are asking for a statement on reasonably expected working hours for school leaders, protected leadership time for school leaders, and a concerted strategy from the DfE for reducing their workload demands on schools. As we move towards an inevitable general election at some point in the very near future, it's paramount that we make the case for improvements in each and every one of these areas. I would urge you all to do 4 things. Visit NAHT's website to familiarise yourselves with the campaigns and the toolkits. Discuss the issues in your regions and branches. Get in touch with your regional organiser who can help you. And press your local MP for assurances in supporting our campaign priorities. Conference, we're going to have a great couple of days together. We've got some fantastic motions to discuss, and we'll be hearing from some more superb speakers. If this is your first time at conference, then I hope you have a great time and feel you'll be able to share your views with us during conference and that you'll join us again next year. If, on the other hand, you're a seasoned regular, then you know the drill by now. Engage in the debates, reflect on what you hear from our guest speakers, discuss ideas with your colleagues, and think about how you can contribute to getting our message out there on the run-up to the general election. Colleagues, since we last met at conference, we've achieved and seen a level of political change that we probably felt was impossible. The year ahead offers us the opportunity to create an education system befitting of the professionalism of our members and of the young people that we serve. When we conclude our work here, I would urge you to return to your branches and regions, engage in our activity, and be the catalyst for the change that we all want to see. Thank you for coming to Newport, and I wish every one of you an enjoyable conference.